So it's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Jingjing here. Jingjing and I have been know each other over a decade. So I have always admired her leadership and visions in advancing data science in pharmaceutical industry. Jingjing is a fellow of the American Statistics Association and currently serves as executive director, global head within the Global Statistics and Data Science at Beijing. Diverse global teams and support data analytical and digital innovation efforts across both R&D and non-R&D functions. With over 18 years of experience across FDA and the pharmaceutical industry, Jingjing has a deep understanding of career, cancer drug development, rare disease, and pediatric studies. Today, she will share her perspective on how to identify areas within drug development where AI not only show promise, but also already delivering values and central integration cross-functional workflow. Please join me. Welcome, Jingjing.
Thank you. I really appreciate the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and thank you, Wei, for the nice introduction. And I know this is the last talk of the conference. I'm really glad to see still many of you are in the audience. So I hope I can provide some of that value also to you, like from my own experience working in the space. So that I know AI is the buzzword, so how we identify AI can be used, and especially in the drug development, because I think AI is already been pretty well established in the research areas, but for drug development, this is where I think the highly regulated space where adoptions and risk adverse groups and how that can be actually acceptable. So here is a quick background on how, because I'm leading a group called Data Science and Digital Innovations. So this is how it's based on my own experience, but it's also my own view on how this can be applicable. So I'm going to start with clinical trial is a data journey. So then it start with defining data, right? So then I'm a statistician by training. So that basically means, you're going to write out a protocol and you're going to define what kind of data you need to collect so that it's going to establish the efficacy and safety of the drug before it gets to the patient. So that means you have your study design, protocol development, you have your case report forms, and then the study set up for your system to collect that. And then you're going to collect the data. So then you're going to have a site initiation, patient recruitment, you're going to enter data, you're going to monitor data, clean the data, all the way that you have, source data verification, all the way to actually you analyze and reporting data, right? So then I think for the last part, for many of the audience here is quite familiar. So you write up your plan, you analyzing preparation for the data, and then, basically generate report to do that. So at every step of the way, data is created, right? So it's not just patient level data, it's every step of the way. You have protocol itself. The protocol element, is it phase 1, is it phase 2, and what patient population, what endpoint are you going to do? It's used to living in a static way in some documents, some silo systems. But now how can we making that integrated, which is this why I think we wanted to make this AI to be part of that journey. And I think, for many of you, I don't know how about, your understanding about how data science and AI plays in this role, in this whole paradigm. But I think, based on my own experience, this is how I view data science can be part of that journey. So then this is really depends on, the data science is really the core of all that. So we have our domain intuitions for any of that, because we work with different business functions within the drug development. You have your medical doctors, and then they actually know the medical knowledges. So you need to rely on them to provide you what you need to be most critical data, critical things that you need to generate within the protocol itself. But also for other, clinical operations, you also need to understand what do they care about the data. So that's really be able to digitalize that. So that can be able to help you down the way. And then we need a lot of like obviously computer scientists, which can make that happen by either way of generating a software system itself, but also be able to generating the visualization for them to be able to see. And then we have our statistics is the core. So really need to be able to validate, be able to make people comfortable with that. So then I think, obviously I'm a statistician by training. So what I typically would like to say is data science is still a statistic, but with a statistic with a better PR. And then for, I think, AI obviously is a tool, is in the data science toolbox to really solving this domain problem. So it's not like the only way to be able to do that, but it's a very useful way to do that. I think, coming back to how AI can be useful, because we do want to talk about the AI, the value add portion of that, right? So then why I'm bringing value here? Because we are really solving business problems. So it's a circle of things that you really need to be able to identify and work with your business groups to be able to solve the problem for them. So really start with the business problem. So I think, what I typically see, so for some of those tools, is always saying, I have this great tool, so then you can just basically use this independent of the context, which is where I don't think that's the right way to do. The sequence of things happens really, there's a business problem that you need to solve. And then, you're using the data and how data can help you solve that problem, then you can generate value. And AI is part of that equation. It may or may not be AI purely. AI may not be the only solution to do that, but if it happens to be, then great. So there's really like the whole suite of things that you really need to happen. You really need to understand, domain problem, and then you need to collect the data. You need to collect. It's like, running a clinical trial yourself, but then running really for everything that's, you need. For all these roles on the right-hand side, I think you see on the graph, is all the roles that we actually need. It's quite a collaborative, interdisciplinary, group for us to be able to make it work, so that we're able to generating a lot of user-based story data insight. So that's actually depends on what kind of tools you're using, but these are all the roles that we're able to providing for business groups at the end of the day. All right. So then coming to what are we doing in the pharma, right? FDA published some of the white papers a couple of years back. So these are all the things that they gave in that particular reference that AI has been shown its use. And then what we're particularly, interested in the clinical development space. And also I think, this is pretty new. Everybody saw the news, back in, I think, early this week, that the new commissioner mentioned that they have launched the agency-wide AI tool to optimize the performance for the American people to aid in their own review. I think we're still early days to see how that's going to work. But then I think, this is not for agency-wise. They've already been deep into committing to that. For pharma, I think this is also sending the signal AI is coming no matter what, and just depends on how you're able to use it. Okay, so then I think there's always anecdotal information like how AI is used per each company, each business functions, and then so what we actually don't know is how the landscape is. So then back in the mid-2024, there's a collaboration that between Tufts University and DIA. I'm really glad to see that the CBA actually has the joint collaboration with DIA. So as a Beijing, we're now newly changed the name to B1 Medicine. We're part of that AI consortium. So if you are hearing I think the DIA, in the keynote session earlier today, they mentioned that they have that new consortium established, and our company is one of that consortium members. So then they ran a survey mid last year. So it's a global survey, which covers the almost pretty majority of the pharma, big and small CROs, and then global, and not only within US, but a large part also covers China. So then they have, collected over 302 responses on the 34 questions. These are well crafted questions specifically asking how AI is used, and then they're separate into 36 distinct activities and in the three major stages of that. So as you can actually see it in my earlier slides, it's a data journey, right? So at the planning design stage, there's 12 activities, and then execution, we're actually collecting data. There's 20 activities, and then there's regulatory submissions, and there's 4 activities where they are specifically asking the company about that to understand the landscape of it. And overall, I think, shouldn't be a surprise that overall it's perceived quite positively to implementing the AI and machine learning into their space throughout the clinical development, which is good news, right? There's always going to be a but, correct? What's the but? The overall adoption is 33, the overall adoption actually not as impressive as you would think. There's a 39, close to 37% is not yet using or implementing the AI or machine learning across all activities. It's pretty similar across the stage, the 3 major stages. And then although 30% of them is in piloting, which means that you are doing some of those proof of concept here and there, but not universally scalable. And then there's only 10% of that is fully implementation. That means you're scaling up to across your all studies, and it's a repeated process. No longer one case here and there. So then, if you're asking yourself, like I'm sure everybody here also agrees, if everybody thinks it's so great, it's positive, why is the adoption low? I think that we're also asking ourselves, right? So that why is that low? Some of that is known, that isn't new, right? So then data quality, lack of complete interoperable data, privacy, integrity, security, explainability has always been that concern to people. And then they're less likely, this is a risk adverse group to start with. So then there's going to be that trust need to be built so that they're able or are willing to use. But the last one is the ability to demonstrate value. Not a lot of people talk about, but that is the non-ignorable concern across the board, which is why I'm here today talking about, because we run through the same journey, right? So then we're thinking this is great. We're helping you automating this and to be more efficient. Why are you using this? That's because how are you going to demonstrate value? It's going to be measurable business value. Then how do we do that? So that is where the value add comes in. It's obviously going back to we have to start with the business problem. What are we solving for? So and what are the business problems? Are we need to select site with good performance, recruitment rate, regulatory compliance, and data quality? Then it's a data problem, finding the right data. Then you basically combine them and then give you the prediction. Or is it inconsistency in data between systems? Well, then you just consolidate them and then solving that problem. And AI may not be needed in that space. Or it's a current state, or it's a protocol key problem, protocol problem. But for that, I think this is where everybody's quite familiar. Translator has been, keeping doing that over and over for the past many, many years. And it's called a key protocol data flow, right? So the current state for that, there's a multiple hands-off between systems. So you write in words, and then you load into whatever systems that you're making people collaborate, you sign off. Then separately, you set up your EDC system, you set up separately into your CDMS system. Whatever system you're separate is siloed. You have to be multiple handoff. Your manual manual transcriptions, there are opportunity for errors, and there's data inconsistency throughout. The ownership is unclear, and there's duplication and no single source of truth across systems. So this is actually across the board. It's always been there. So then that's a business problem. So then for that, these are the examples. So then how can we actually translate that into a total value, the total value, where the business value comes in? So it's measured in 4 different quadrants. There's your measure as a productivity, which is how many resources that you're able to reduce and how many time you are able to shorten. So, and then is it better quality and the cost and time, all that comes in, right? So then what we're seeing as our own implementation is that if you're looking at the x-axis, that's going to be the business adoption readiness, and then it's going to be low or high, and then the business value by measure the total value by one or multiple of those quadrants either is low or high. So really, like you can say the value add transformation only comes in mostly is in quadrant 4. So if the business doesn't feel like this is a must have that I have, and so painfully I want to change. They will feel like this is nice to have, but I'm good. I can still keep doing the way I'm doing work. It doesn't really having that strive to say I have to change, otherwise I can't keep up. I can't keep up with everything else. So that business value, the business readiness, is actually quite critical. So that is where I think that's really always the things that we're striving for, to do, finding that opportunity where the business feel that so stressed and they're so willing to change. So then we can partner up and make that happen, which is what we're illustrating here. Based on our own experience, this is not a comprehensive list by any means, but that is where we can see success. And for our company today, these are all the areas we already been either implemented or on the way of implementations. So these are across different stages, from the planning to all the way to submission reportings. And what we're going to talk about here, one of that is the highlighting the red, which is the clinical content reuse, and then the digital data flow. So with that, this is my use case. I'm only providing one here, but I hope this can give you some of the idea how we approach this, so that we are really be able to show some business value and the business is willing to change together with us. So then I think, for the clinical trial design execution, there's always that, the whole group that you need to really work together. There's going to be, process. There's going to be consistency. There's standardization, compliance, all the way that you need to thinking through. So pretty much on this area that we're hitting all 4 quadrants. So it's quite easy to really be able to justify making, our business function work together with us. And then for industry challenge, I think, most of you already know, there's a growth in protocol design, customizations. So compare with 10 years ago, there's 3 times more the information is actually today. And there's from the protocol approval to the first patient first visit, the time is up by 27%. And there's longer duration of downstream activities like EDC build, SDTM creations. Also, there's an increase in the number of protocol amendments, which increase the cost, and then also the dropout rates. So these, if you really quantify that, compared with 10 years ago, the total substantial amendment is up by almost more than double. And then the average is 4 protocol amendment per study. So these are the evidence that Tufts University has been done. So that's the research that they already published. I really included the reference below. So then there's basically means that there's increase in complexity, and there's 2 submission packages. But then how much data exactly actually you're collecting, using the clinical trial is actually supporting the target indications, although you're collecting so many informations. So we will have to go back to see how we can digitalize understanding the data has been used. So then, is it now the case when we look at this, is it automation AI can be part of that magic portion that can solving that our industry problem? And then what should be the recipe for success? So when we look at that, we do look at from the company point of view, we look at how the industry is doing, right? So then all the companies, I think from earlier conversations, you probably heard, different company, they have their own way of approaching things. And they're either doing the discrete siloed by document type, like only protocol. I think my earlier, our presenter just before me also talk about that. They're doing that by one document at a time. And they also can be, and they also be focusing heavily on how they can standardize it. And then for doing that. But then there's also going to be that imbalance of things. So what we're looking at that is how can we make that possible? Can we balancing this out? And then we're actually looking at not only the source where the data is collected. So remember, it's a data journey, right? So then from the source, it gets collected all the way down to the submissions. Can we look across the whole spectrum? And then we understand how that's going to be used. So only if those are the data going to be used so critical, then trace back. So these are the most important data that we need to capture and digitalize. Okay, and then based on that, can we do some of the standardization? So that really cutting down the manual work and this data inconsistency, and now having that single source of truth exist and defined at the very beginning, which is where we have our protocol builders. So then this is really, if you're looking at the left-hand side is our standardizations. So we pretty much can build all the clinical data, metadata repository from our study design to the endpoint, to the analysis plan, and then from our, the disease-specific libraries as well, like clinical contest. And all the way down, that we also look at across spectrums, right? There are 18 different clinical document. Now we can using the data from protocol all the way down, reuse that information. So really making the data flow from the beginning all the way down. And there's also the other 15 other systems that are going to be using that information. So then we're only putting once, we're using it multiple times. That's really the idea behind this. And I'm also looking at the whole spectrum on how the data is connected. So then the heart of that is the protocol. All the other, as you can see, is a network effect, which will look at how much information the data actually share between the clinical document from the protocol versus the other document. So that including the ICF, the informed consent, they have including our SAPs and for other, and also the other, networks, and they can be, using some of the document only using 20%, but some of them actually using a lot more. So by matching that, we're able to put in protocol once and making that as the source, and then so making that all connectivity and consistency work. So then when we actually do some calculation, this can be quite significant, right? So then if you're looking at how this effort goes, the 18 critical document times and 15 key system times the number of studies, these are the business value able to quantify. So let's really be able to driving this change quite significantly. And then obviously we can continue optimizing this. So it won't be a one-time thing. So based on what we have in the historically, and then what the health authority gives the feedback, and then we're continuously making these optimizations. And then also, I think, I do want to say that AI is a tool, right? But it's a people process tool altogether. So it's not what you're thinking like, you have a tool and you have great data, hand it over, done. It's actually not. In reality, it's actually 70% of that change come from the people and process change. So when we're using one of those, AI developer tool, in the same time, we also having all that change managed comes in. Who is our change champion? What their document we need to update? So all of that also needs to comes in. And then so all that, I think, for this particular case, these are all the people, process, and technology all need to come together to really make it work. I know I'm running out of time, but this is at the end. So what about the futures, right? So we really wanted to say, how can we make it work? So then I think there's always going to be that saying, afraid of, from the group that's actually going to be deploying these AI solutions. I think, the wrong approach is to basically they will do everything. And so then human doesn't really get involved, but it's not. It's that the approach is where it's a combination, where the human still provides the oversight and still verify and signs off how the AI solution provides. And also I think, there's also the other way I'm looking at this is, we still need to start small and you making that incremental changes, not a big bang deliveries, because sometimes that doesn't really work. So then although we look at the digitalization, but we're doing one document at a time, but then looking at the whole spectrum so that we ask people to know what's coming next, but then that's still incremental change. So with that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jingjing. On the behalf of the Executive Committee, we'd like to present this certificate of appreciations to recognize your contribution to the 30th CBA Annual Conference.
Right. Final minutes. I know this is just the last few minutes before going home, and so we don't want to hold you up for a longer time. So the last session is a panel discussion. And thank you to all the three wonderful speakers for their solid presentations. Now we'll transition to the part of our session, the panel discussion. So welcome Harry Young on the stage along with our speakers for the panel discussion. So before we start in the panel discussion, I'd like to do a quick introduction to Dr. Harry Young. He is no stranger to many of us, and he was featured speakers last year at a CBA meeting. And he is currently Vice President of Biometrics at Recursion Pharmaceuticals, following positions as a VP of Biometrics at Fate Therapeutics, and also head of statistical science at AstraZeneca and Marriott, respectively. With over 20 years of experience in drug R&D, his expertise spans therapeutic areas of transplantation, vaccine, autoimmune implementation, antibody and disease, oncology, and rare diseases. So Dr. Young is in innovative clinical trial design and regulatory submissions and integration of the real-world data in the drug and R&D. He is prolific author, has published 9 books and over 100 articles and books chapters covering diverse statistical, scientific and regulatory topics. And without further ado, please on stage, Dr. Young.
So I was almost when I walk on stage there, the music, Western music.
Yeah. The